Bernstein, director de la Liga Anti-Difamación en Estados Unidos. Welcome to Mexico.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we know that you signed in New York a cooperation agreement to identify attacks against Latin Americans and immigrants. Tell us how this initiative will work.
Well, I'll start. The MOU is a Memorandum of Understanding signed between the government of Mexico and the Anti-Defamation League that has national coverage in the U.S. And the main purpose of the memorandum is to work together towards facing this challenging scenario in which discrimination and hate crimes against minorities, but specifically against immigrants, is increasing. And that has been translated into a series of workshops that we started very early in New York, and maybe even want to expand a bit on that.
So we've been doing work with different consulates, including the Mexican consulate. With we have 25 offices around the country. Diego and I met 2 years ago, and we in our discussion said we can even try to take these kind of meetings to another level as far as helping consulate staff and affecting change towards hate towards immigrants, and specifically in the Mexican immigrant community that Diego deals with. And I think it's something that we were able to do with the work of law enforcement and bringing the New York Police Department Hate Crimes Task Force and getting them involved, and then training their consulate staff on how to do intake and understand what bias is and how to handle those kind of calls that the consulate staff have been getting really since we've seen this kind of rise of hate in the United States and in New York.
Okay, and who is participating in these workshops? Are also the consulates, the people that maybe might be victims, or also police officers? I don't know who is involved in this.
When it comes to the memorandum between the Anti-Defamation League and the Mexican government, those workshops are being instrumented at every one of the 51 consulates Mexico has across the U.S. So the initial phase, which will take place in the next months, includes on the first hand consular officials, officials of the government of Mexico that work in each of these consulates, so that they can have the tools themselves to identify possible cases of bias and hate crimes, and they can, better perform their duties and be able to denounce and accompany the victims that they identify. And then in the second phase, it will include leaders from the migrant community. All the leaders of the Mexican immigrant community will take part in these courses as well, and it will have a trickle-down effect. And eventually, what we aim at is that the majority of the Mexican immigrant population benefits from all the information and the tools that the ADL is bringing into the table, and that they can be better prepared to face discrimination and hate crimes.
And have you identified an increase of these type of crimes since Donald Trump arrived to the government?
There's a spike in hate crimes that the NYPD documented after the election. There was a double-digit increase, and that number held into 2017. We've seen anti-Semitic incidents in New York and across the country at record highs. We've been tracking anti-Semitic incidents in the United States since 1979. New York, we had a 90% increase from 2016 to 2017. Across the country, over 60%. So very concerning, and we see those trends. And we know that when it's happening to Jews, it's certainly happening to other minority groups across the country and in New York. So it's something we have to take very seriously.
And who have been the main responsible of these attacks?
I think there's a variety of actors, but certainly groups, hate groups, and people that are label themselves as supremacists, people that do not really respect the civil liberties and the civil rights of other citizens.
And we also there's regular individuals, people, we have a lot of lone wolves, as they say, that people that are just getting their information from the internet, they're learning how to hate, it's stoking the fire of what their feelings maybe already were about immigrants or minorities, and they decide to act out. We had a lone wolf in New York that came from the South and actually murdered and killed an African American, and he was planning on doing that. And we know people target certain minority groups, and they're certainly getting this information through the rise of hate on Facebook and Twitter, and they're able to exchange those ideas and allow things to metastasize. And that's a big problem for us.
And have you seen the authorities of the American authorities worried about this problem?
The police departments in the NYPD, FBI, other law enforcement agencies clearly understand this. Now, every agency is different. In New York, the NYPD and the FBI in New York clearly see this as an issue and are tremendous partners for us. At the trainings, we actually have hate crime task force leaders that are there in those trainings are actually giving their personal contact information to consulate staff. So if there's ever a question, there's a direct line to the police, and they want to partner and they want to do it at the highest level.
Well, certainly it's a very important issue that worries, I think, all around the world. So talking about immigrants, certainly there is an urgency to approve a reform in the Congress. So how do you see that process right now of an immigrant reform? And also the last move in the White House of Rex Tillerson, did this also give some uncertainty in issues like immigration?
I'll take DACA.
Yep.
Okay. So I think with DACA in the immigration policies, clearly we were at the ADL. We were very upset that it wasn't part of the past federal budget, and we've been very vocal about the president's stance on DACA, and we were a big supporter of DACA and a big supporter of Dreamers, and we are in America a nation of immigrants, and we support that. And we were immigrants too, the founders especially of the ADL over 100 years ago, and we do everything in our power to speak out loudly. Our CEO Jonathan Greenblatt is very vocal, a supporter of immigration policy and reform in support of DACA, and we want.
And I think it's very representative that the Anti-Defamation League sees in Mexico a partner, because this speaks a lot of how in the United States, in spite of what we have seen recently at certain circles and maybe at the federal level in terms of implementation of immigration laws, there's a lot of American citizens and certainly civil society organizations that support immigrants and that recognize and value the wonderful contributions that Mexican immigrants or immigrants in general bring into the table and bring to the American economy and the American society in general.
Well, congratulations for this kind of initiative. We hope we can talk with you later so you can tell us about the results of this initiative. Thank you very much for coming. Gracias, Diego Gómez Pickering, Cónsul General de México en Nueva York, y Iván Bernstein.